Hey there, and welcome back to another video in our Foundations series. I get to talk about something that I absolutely love in this video, and that's food. I love food. I love cooking. My kitchen is my sanctuary. It's my little place that I can go and just make edible art, and I love it. I love food. And cooking over the years has taught me a very valuable lesson that applies to leadership, particularly to owners and to managers. And that lesson is the lesson about writing recipes. Writing recipes. Recipes are foundational to the chef because without them, you are just sort of in there throwing food around. The recipe is the guide. Now, I sometimes follow the guide. I sometimes don't follow the guide. I kind of want to throw a little cinnamon in that and a little vanilla in that because I want to. But without that recipe, I really don't have a guide that gives me the direction I want to go for the meal that I want to try to create. The same is true about your business. Without a guide, without a recipe of your business, if you will, you're just sort of in there figuring it out day to day. And here's how you might know that you don't have a really good handle on a recipe for your business. You really don't have a guide. Do you ever feel like you're flying by the seat of your pants in your business or leading people? Do you ever feel like you have to step in and try to finish a project with someone to make sure that it gets done right, or that you're always hustling, or you have these seasons where you're really hustling, going like mad from one thing to another, really scattered, spread out? That might be an indication that you don't have a guide, because a guide gives you exact direction on where to go, what to do, what to think about from day to day, week to week, month to month. And they're really going to be foundational for many of the videos that we'll be doing in this series, because even some of the homework I'm going to be giving you over the weeks is going to look like a recipe. With a recipe, you know more or less what you want yourself and others to achieve in the business day to day. And today I just want to talk about my 3 rules for writing recipes in the kitchen, or particularly in your business, and how you as owners and managers can write those recipes together going forward. All right, so I've got 3 rules. Rule number 1 about writing recipes for your business is that if it's not written down, it does not exist. A great consultant one time told me that there is no such thing as common sense. And I think he is absolutely right. It's been more true, I've learned over the years. There is no such thing as common sense, because what is common sense? Common sense is the things that we do regularly that we should just know to do. Well, how do you know what to do? Well, you do them regularly. You see the loop here? You can't tell someone, well, that was just common sense, unless you teach them what common sense in your business looks like. Imagine the new hire that you just hired over from such and such company, and they come to work for you. Well, to them, the common sense that they've learned was all the common sense at that other company. And maybe there's things over there that you want them to bring to you, but do you really want them to do all the same things that they did over there with you? Or are there some things that you want them to do, to say, to think that are unique to your business? It's probably true, right? You can't assume people just know what to do until you tell them. So if it's not written down, it doesn't exist. People need a reference as well throughout the week, after you've told them what you want them to do, to look back on and say, okay, I remember. The manager told me I need to do this, this, and this, and here it is. It's on my checklist. It's on my orientation form. Here is the recipe, and I need to do this, 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 and this. It's the reference guide. Helps them know what to do. Because also, what happens when you're not in the business? You got called away because you got to go pick up the kid from school from some situation or emergency that's happened. Or you want to take a vacation and you're not going to be in the business for a week. How does your staff know what to do unless you have written it down and given it to them? If you've just assumed that they know what the guides are, they're probably going to forget a few of those things. Give it to them in writing so that they have that reference. Also, and this is important, another reason for writing it down, How will you know as an owner, as a manager, what you've covered in training if you don't have it on paper somewhere? How will you know the recipes that you've taught people unless you've actually given it to them and have something to look back on? Rule number 1, if it's not written down, it does not exist. Rule number 2, write your recipes down in pencil. Write them in pencil. I have a saying, I like to make rules to break rules, because as life has it, there is no rule that is perfect. And a situation will inevitably come along and confront you as a manager or an owner, and in that moment, following the rule will probably not help your business. When that client comes and they're 1 or 2 or days past the return policy or a week past a return policy, and they're a really good customer and they really need this return because they want to exchange it, are you going to break the rules for them? Sure, why not? We should. Well, that means we should write our rules, our recipes down in pencil, because for that moment, I'm going to need to erase that rule in order to best serve my client and serve the mission of my company, right? Also, times change, circumstances change, economies change. No rule is really going to last forever. So we need to make sure that we're willing to go back in and test them and tweak them and change them to best serve our client, best serve our people. And that means that we need to write those down in pencil. You don't actually have to write them in pencil unless you want to, but be willing to go back and erase and change the ideas that you once had to better serve the goals, the vision, and the culture of your company. Don't be so proud of your rules and your ideas that you chisel them down in stone and they're immovable. Be flexible. Write them in pencil. Rule number 3 about writing recipes, write them in as few steps as possible. Let's say that you hired me and you want me to open the store. This is my first week on the job. And you gave me a guide, the recipe, if you will, that has 20 steps on how to open the business. That's a lot. It's overwhelming. I don't know where everything is in the store yet. I've just gotten here. I'll do my best, but I don't know that I'm going to get all 20 done. And if I do, I don't know if I'm going to do it well. It's overwhelming. And the more steps that you introduce into a process, the more opportunities you have for that thing to fail. So write recipes down in a few steps, 3 to 5 max. If it takes more than 5 steps to do something, then you probably need to break it down into different sections of training or rewrite the recipe to make it more general, to keep it within a general 5 to 3 step framework. And over time, I'm going to learn how to open that business up the way that you want me to. And then it's going to become common sense. I'm going to learn common sense because you wrote it down, you taught it to me, you gave me time to become proficient. I get better at it, and I won't need that guide anymore. I know that recipe like the back of my hand. So now you can give me a new one. You can give me something else to try out without me feeling overwhelmed by too much too quickly and without presenting too many opportunities for failure to happen because you've given too many steps. Now, there's a difference for owners and managers on your approach to how you write recipes for your business and how you write the rules. I think of it sort of like a head chef and a sous chef, if you are a cooking nerd like me. The head chef has the recipes that they write down, and they hand it to the sous chef to make sure that the sous chef does it on the daily. They're on the line making sure everybody's getting the orders out correctly. Now, here's how owners and managers of retail companies can do something similar with each other. Owners, you are responsible for creating and writing the recipes of your company. Remember, you set the goal, the vision, and the culture. And the way you do that is by creating the guides and the expectations that you have for everybody there and how you want to achieve those things. You are responsible ultimately for the rules. Now, the manager may have some ideas, your staff may have some ideas, consultants may give you some written down ideas, but ultimately you're the one who has to implement them and put them in the cookbook of your business. That also means that owners, you must take on the liability of those rules. What happens when something goes off the rails? When someone doesn't follow the rules? When the rules get broken? What happens if a rule becomes flimsy and doesn't work anymore? When the recipe isn't as good as it once was? You take on the full responsibility, the full liability of those rules. And that is a heavy load to carry, but it's so important because you as an owner, everything rises and falls on leadership. Remember, you as an owner must take on the largest responsibility of making sure that the ship is going in the right direction towards the goals and the visions and the culture that you want to create. And this is one of those responsibilities you have to take on to do it. Managers, one of your jobs, one of your most primary jobs, is to make sure that you see those recipes through to the end. The ones that the head chef has given you, the owner. You're going to the front lines to make sure that they try it out and they give it a good go with good attitudes, with the right spirit to make it happen. Now, you might see some things along the way that need to be tweaked. You go back to the owner and say, hey, we could tweak this recipe here, this guide here, just a little bit. It might make it more efficient. It might help the company better. That's important. But managers, it is not your job to write the recipes for the owner. Now, if you have some good ideas, send them up the chain and the owner might want to implement them. But the best thing you can do in management is to see those recipes through to the end and tweak them along the way in that collaborative spirit with the owner. Those are my rules for writing recipes for your business or the kitchen, whichever you prefer. If it's not written down, it does not exist. Write your rules down in pencil and make them in as few steps as possible for the greatest chance of success. Now, at the end of this video, take a moment, owners, managers, to sit down together and decide what is the most important rule of your company. We're going to have a lot of opportunities throughout the series to come up with different recipes and guides for different parts of your business. But what is the one thing that you want everybody in the company to know is their chief responsibility? This might just be an open-ended conversation for the two of you to have. And again, if you're an owner and a manager, take a moment to journal and write down to yourself, what's the most important thing that I want people to take away every single day? The most important thing I want people to achieve every day inside of my business. Write it down, have that conversation, and then when you finish that conversation, you're ready for our next Foundations video. See you there.